Okay, so I'm not sure I'm a thrill seeker just by personality, but it was part of the strategy to bond with a teenage boy. So I think a lot of people have experienced that. And we lived around the world. He kind of grew up in London. And he actually started a charity in South Africa. And we spent a lot of time. I was chairman of the board in South Africa, living in London, so we were down at least 6-7 times a year. And he did work on his charity, but we thought it would be interesting. So on his 15th birthday, I think I had that right, we bungee jumped off the Big Falls Bridge, so Victoria Falls between Zimbabwe and Zambia, over the Zambezi River, which was 110-meter jump. And that went fairly well. We both made it. And it does kind of create a bond with a teenage boy. So on his 18th birthday, we jumped off the Blue Cross Bridge, which is on the Garden League in South Africa. It was 180 meters. And then we did a few other things. One of the things we did, we moved back to the States. He went to university. And so we didn't get together, we didn't live together. And I was looking for things to do, so we went to a racing school. So Skip Barber Racing, you may have heard of that. It's very famous from Jerry Seinfeld had a Skip Barber sticker on his refrigerator and Seinfeld shows. But it was a great bonding experience. We've done a couple of those now, but it also makes you a much better driver. They teach you what a car will do. And I felt pretty good about that just because he's off in the world now. He lives in Atlanta, which you need race driving skills, driving. But I think that was good. It was a great way to bond. I liked the experience about it. And I learned a lot too, driving, managing fears up above the bridge. It's fun.
So let's talk a little bit then about your path to leadership and your path to becoming Albemarle's CEO. Could you tell us a little bit about that journey and what steps led you along the way to where you are now?
Right, so I'm a chemical engineer by training. So we talked about that this morning with the students a little bit. Engineering, I think, is a great background. My view, it's a degree in problem solving. I realized about my sophomore year at university, I really didn't want to be a chemical engineer, but it was a good background. So I worked as an engineer for a period of time. I went to business school. As soon as at that period of time, you kind of needed 5 years experience. Then you go to business school. There was a formula that was applied at the time. So I did that, and then I've been on the business side, but with chemical companies most of my career. I tell people I grew up in the industrial gas business, fascinating industry. So they basically take free material, air, essentially, and then you separate it into its components, and then your raw materials are electricity, air, and then kind of the technology that goes into that. And then you use it for applications. You sell it to customers. And we always said, if you make something, you use industrial gases. So oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, helium, argon, krypton, all those things. It's a pretty interesting business. And it's very global, but the businesses are very global. So that's kind of how I developed my sense for business practices, and I work all over the world. I have businesses in China, Australia, South Africa. That was that business, South America. So I ran very global businesses around that, and also very local global businesses. So it was, $10, $15 billion business, but the local business, the products didn't really transfer. So you had to run them locally within the local culture and local system. So that's how I grew up. I ended up we merged. It's a British public company. I was running roughly half of it, merged it with a German company. I ran half of that one. That was a $20 million business, largest industrial gas company in the world. I left there because I realized they weren't going to let me be CEO, and I had to set on this path to be CEO because I wasn't German, and it seemed like that was going to be a requirement. So I left there to be CEO of an engineering construction company based in Geneva, Switzerland, and sold that business in 2015. Remember that, and retired from that. I did a little private equity work and some board stuff. Ended up being on the board of Albemarle through the acquisition of Rockwood. I was on Rockwood's board. I helped the private equity business set that up, and then was on that board of Albemarle. Became lead director for Albemarle about
2018, I think, and then became CEO in 2020.
So, and that was not a plan. The way it worked out.
So that does bring us to Albemarle. So let's talk a little bit about who Albemarle is. And I think many people in the room might know us for our work in lithium, but we are actually much more than that. Could you tell us a little bit about Albemarle's impact on the world?
Yeah, so we are, the business it grew up as a specialty chemical producer. And around that, we have three businesses. So we had a business around bromine, which is a resource you get from the earth, and they usually combines with, we have two resources, one in Arkansas, one in the Dead Sea. And then we process that with some pretty sophisticated chemistries into materials that are used. The largest application is in consumer electronics as a flame retardant. And so it basically keeps your phone, your electric vehicle, your refrigerator, if it's got a pure chip in it, which most do these days, from catching on fire. And that is kind of one of the interesting businesses we do. The lithium business is very similar. Material comes out of the earth, and we turn it into the materials that get used either in the glass on your cell phone, in lithium drugs. It's a precursor for a lot of drugs. It's also a precursor for a lot of chemicals. Turns out lithium is very reactive, so if you make a molecule and you stick lithium on it, stabilize it, you can switch it out for another molecule very quickly, so it becomes a precursor for drugs, but also other industrial molecules. So we can make those half of a molecule for someone that they can use it to make the full molecule that they want to do. And then we have a business in that we call Ketchen. We rebranded it Ketchen. They make catalysts for FCC and hydrocracking processes in the oil refining process. So our catalysts make the oil react, and we take out the more hazardous material in the oil to make cleaner fuels. And so all three of those businesses are around pretty sophisticated chemistry, where you make a custom molecule for your customer. And the markets we serve are very broad. The one that gets all the press is the EV market, lithium-ion batteries, which is the biggest piece of our business. But we serve healthcare markets, we serve energy markets, we call it connectivity. So that all of the network wiring and all that stuff, we've got our flame retardants in that. So, and then we serve the traditional fuel market and trying to make them cleaner. And we actually, 2 years ago, we kind of got ourselves in a little bit of a bind between, we were supporting EVs, and we were selling to the oil refining space. And one of our biggest customers in that space didn't like the fact that we were supporting EVs in a pretty vocal way. And so they were our largest customer in that business, and they said, we're not buying from you anymore. So we kind of restructured that business, rebranded it, and we kind of carved out the corporate piece. Our strategy now from the corporate Albemarle is more about specialties and energy storage. The specialties are those sophisticated molecules, both lithium and bromine. And the energy storage is really about lithium-ion batteries. Ketchen is separate. We let them do their own marketing and technology and market to their customers, and we recovered that customer. So that kind of we build like the strategy around the resource we take from the earth, and we build our sustainability story and our actions around that we take care of those resources and the communities in which we operate. And then we use the sophisticated chemistry that is our legacy to make the molecules that our customers need. And then in doing that, we end up being a combination of a mining company and a chemical company. And if you know anything about those industries, the culture is very different in those two industries. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges from a corporate standpoint we're trying to be a trailblazer in the space, but we're also having to manage the culture of two fundamentally different companies.
So let me ask you about the culture then, because at Albemarle we describe ourselves as a purpose-driven, values-led organization. And we recently undertook this exercise to really double down on that purpose. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the value that creates and what it means to you when we say that Albemarle is working to enable a more resilient world.
Yeah, so and I look over here at this table, this is the Albemarle table, so they're all going to keep me honest. And then they're also wondering what I'm going to say. But I think that, we went through that strategy work, and that was kind of one of the key outcomes for us that we talk about, and we try and really leverage that. So we are trying to make a more resilient world, and we've identified a number of markets that we can serve. We have these two resources, bromine and lithium, that we take from the earth and then use very sophisticated chemistry to make products that serve the planet. And a lot of that, a big portion of that is about clean energy and about the energy transition that we're looking at, about the flame retardants, about how you can use higher intensity voltages and EVs or AI or any of those type of things. So it really is about how we make this a more sustainable planet. And we went back and forth on those words, right? Being more sustainable, we chose resilient. We felt it was more meaningful to us, and frankly, sustainable was being too much of a buzzword. But and then the other part of that is about being values-led. So we do have, I think, a good culture within the company. We're a growth company. It's very dynamic. We talked about this table about Albemarle time, how everything happens so quickly and our market changes dramatically. When Elon Musk can tweet something, it could change my business, right? So you have to be able to pivot and be dynamic, but at the same time, we have to make certain promises to our employees that we are a diverse company, that we operate that way, kind of the mentality of the best player plays. And I think my job is to recruit and retain the best and brightest people, regardless of their background. And to do that, I have to make them comfortable at work so they can perform their best. So that is really, frankly, my job. Now there's strategy pieces to it, but if I can accomplish that, I think I've done the big part of my job.
So we're a global company, headquartered right here in Charlotte. Can we talk a little bit about what our Charlotte footprint is and what our investments are in the region, and also some of the status of those investments with the lithium prices and that dynamic environment right now?
Right, so we do have our global headquarters here down in South Park, the building in the way, or you can see our building. We run everything here. We try and actually operate as much as we can out in the regions. So we have a principle to try and make decisions as close to the customer as possible. And we live by that. When we moved to Charlotte, I'm not sure we felt like it was going to be the epicenter of our business. But we have a resource at Kings Mountain, which was shut down in the 80s because it was just more economical to get product out of Chile. It's a much better cost position. But as the market has grown, it's become a world-class resource. So we're working to restart that mine and provide lithium that's necessary for this transition. We had plans to build a conversion facility in Richburg, South Carolina, just over the border of South Carolina, that would process the material from the mine in Kings Mountain. And we bought a facility up near UNCC as part of our technology parks. Our R&D for our lithium business is done at Kings Mountain today. As the mine grows, it's going to overtake our labs and our space that we have. We needed to move. We had an opportunity near UNCC to buy an older manufacturing facility. It was a great footprint. And we got very excited about it. And at the time, lithium prices were $70 or $80 a kilo, and we got very excited about those expansion opportunities. So, and that's several $1 billion between all that I mentioned. So a year ago, prices were, say, called $70 a kilo. Today, I haven't looked today, but yesterday they were about 12.5 in China, which is the largest market in the world. So to put that in context, every $5 per kilo is $1 billion to us. And that's changed our investment profile because frankly, we've had to scramble a little bit. But our business generates very good margins, and we're growing at 20-25%. I've been investing on a very aggressive trajectory, and we have to pull back on that because I don't have the money to fund that. Last week we went to market and raised $2 billion on a convertible. And we got great support from our shareholders, so we've got funding to grow to the extent we'll have to pull back a little bit. And we'll work out what we do. Look, Kings Mountain is a world-class resource. It will get developed. The timing of it, I'm not 100% sure of. I still need permits there, so that's the long lead item for us at the moment. But it is a world-class resource. It will be developed, and you'll need to process it somewhere. It should be in the United States. I can't really afford to do that where prices are today, but they will come back, and then we will make that investment. And we're a technology company, and as Kings Mountain develops, I'm going to take up my space, or I've got some world-class scientists. I got to have a place for them to work. And it may or may not be as grand as we had anticipated originally, but I need to find a place for them to do the best.
So going back out to a more macro view, as a global company, wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you manage operations during this time of great geopolitical unrest and what you're seeing and how you plan for this.
I think that was on the list.
It's on the list.
So, look, we do operate all over the world, and it's kind of interesting because we have resources and then we have where our market is and where we convert. This industry grew up in China, and China is further ahead than any other economy in the world around, whether it's lithium processing, lithium-ion batteries, the cathode technology, or recycling. Frankly, they are ahead, probably 10 years ahead of the West. And so we've invested in China to participate in that. And then we built facilities outside of China, in Australia and in Chile, to grow that, to grow the knowledge that we have. And then our plan would be to bring that to the United States. The geopolitical piece, I mean, I've operated in the chemical space most of my career. I've never had this kind of geopolitical activity, you know, and if you think about it, probably my best world-class resource in Australia, in Chile, and we have a new Chilean president that rewrote the Constitution, and he said he was going to nationalize the lithium business, so that's a little bit of a curveball. So we manage that. I have the U.S. and China going back and forth, and frankly, over the lithium or the battery industry. The U.S. wants to build out the battery supply chain in North America. China really doesn't want that to happen. There's tensions around that, but we have to have backup plans. So I felt pretty good about I had a plan, a backup plan, and I kind of had an idea of plan C. So we were at Tesla just several years ago, and he told me about plan A, B, C, D, and E. And I'm like, wow, I need 2 or 3 more plans. Which is right. We have to have under each scenario. We need to know which step we take because I don't know what's going to happen. So you have to plan and have scenarios, and we have to be able to pivot quickly. It's not going to be the case where you read the newspaper and you get to think about it and you can act. That may have been the case 50 years ago. Today you have to have. We need to be in a position that when something happens, I can react to it. Otherwise, my business may just disappear.
So, talking about U.S. policy briefly for a moment, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act was in part intended to boost critical minerals in the U.S. And so, curious how you think that is working.
So actually, it was kind of when it first came out, it was quite interesting. As an American, I was pretty proud that we'd done industrial policy for the first time that seemed to have the right impact. I was with my OEM customers within a week, 10 days of that coming out, and every one of them said we've not done anything this last week other than figure out how we take advantage of that, but it had actually changed the way the industry was thinking completely. So I think it was effective. Now, you don't get to do anything in isolation, so we were waiting what Europe was going to do, and Europe has twiddled their fingers and not really done anything yet. They're still trying to figure out what they do. Meanwhile, China has reacts to that. So I think it was a good piece of legislation, but nothing is static. China has reacted to it, and they've accelerated their plan. And they want to be the one who controls that supply chain globally. And I think the U.S. needs to react to it, or they'll be successful. So it was a good start, but it's not going to be the only thing they can do and make it successful in North America.
If we could go back for a minute to talk about how we extract minerals from the earth, how does Albemarle walk that fine line with sustainability, knowing that we have our own sustainability goals, but we also need these resources from the earth. How do we manage through that, and what is Albemarle doing to be on that leading edge?
Yeah, so we actually, there's a couple scenarios here that are pretty interesting. So the hard rock mining, look, it's a dirty business, right? You're digging things out of the earth and you're processing. And it is a challenge, but we try to do that in the most sustainable way that we can. So one of the things we focus on is water, because we tend to operate in areas where water is very tight. So we basically take the best standards to operate the best way that we possibly can. We've partnered with our customers around a standard in the mining industry called IRMA, the Institute for Responsible Mining Assurance. The traditional mining industry is not a big fan of that, and they don't like that we've kind of aligned with the auto companies to mine that way. But we got the first audit done in Chile last year, and our plan at Kings Mountain would be to start that up under IRMA 100% standards. So it would be the first time any mine in any industry is started up under those standards. That is our plan. I was going to talk about the solar in Chile. So in Chile, we take brine that's down in the earth, we pump it up into these ponds, and the sun evaporates the water out of it. So it's solar power, so it's very sustainable from that standpoint. And we concentrate the brine, and we take that and we make our lithium salts from that. So very sustainable because it's all powered by solar. So we're at a high altitude, sun, it evaporates it's very dry, I think probably the driest place on earth. But the local government wants us to put some brine back in and not evaporate it. That's a challenge for us because of our sustainability goals about our carbon footprint. If I have to pump it back in the ground, I've got solar power that I'm operating with today. I'm going backwards to satisfy that. Now there's some environmental reasons that make the solar more sustainably, maybe. So that's one of the challenges we're working through between our own view, sustainability goals, because I actually go backwards on my sustainability goals if I do that, but I'm doing it for environmental reasons. So those are some of the challenges we get to wrestle with.
So before we transition to audience Q&A, is there anything I didn't ask you today that I should have? I'm asking that question with some trepidation now.
Yeah, no, that's the audit committee question. that I have not asked that I should have. No, I don't have. I think we're good. I mean, the one, I guess the question that we get all the time from financial investors is, what's the lithium price and what's it going to be? And we always say we don't predict that, but I do know that if the price is where it is today, if they stay there for an extended period of time, the Western supply chain is not going to make it, right? So if you want to have a Western supply chain for critical minerals and batteries and EVs, the whole capability, prices where they are today doesn't facilitate that. And that's what I tell the White House and what I tell government officials that we have to fight. If we want to make that investment, we have the resources here. I have plans, I have engineering work done on a plant in South Carolina, but I just can't do it at these prices. And that is a geopolitical question.
Thank you. So let's hear from our audience and what's on their mind. Yes.
Please state your name, stand up and speak clearly and try to be concise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken, for incredibly sharing the story of the company. My name is Alfonso Oboe. I'm the Dean of the Business School at Johnson C. Smith University. If you look at it, you can see our campus. I'm inspired by the story of how you've navigated the cross-cultural elements of your enterprise. So I'm just curious if you can elaborate some more about how you were able to weave various nationalities that make up the enterprise. How do you encourage your people to be responsive to the fact that you have a Chinese colleague, or a Japanese colleague, or a German colleague, to make sure that the job gets done, that you maintain a common purpose. It's a tech company, I get that, but I just wanted to learn more about the people aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, it is very global, and we have teams, you know, and most of the teams are pretty local, right? And we always say we aspire to have local leadership as well, and we don't have that everywhere yet, but we aspire to do that. If we put expats in, their job is to transfer knowledge and skills and build leaders, and then lead for the locals. Because I think you get the best, in my experience in global companies, you get the best performance from local teams when they have local leaders and everyone can see someone that looks like them running their business, that they all aspire to that. Because they're motivated, to perform, and it just seems to be, I've seen it over and over again in multiple companies in different geographies, so that's kind of what we do. We've got great leaders in China, well, all over the world, wherever we are, and we're developing those leaders. We aspire to have the most senior person in the country be of that nationality. We're not there yet, but that is what we try to do. And then some of it is the culture of the company that was built and nurtured long before I was here, about working with international colleagues. You know, we always have early meetings so we can accommodate people in China, either early or late. And we try not to do them every day, early and late from the US, but so it's not too late for them. Most people have experiences, or I've heard stories, you've worked in global companies, so they have meetings at 10 o'clock in the US and it's middle of the night in China, but that was convenient for the US or corporate headquarters. We try not to do that. That said, the US time zone, I lived and worked in either the London or CET time zone for a big part of my career, and it's a much better time zone to work locally with. I miss GMT and CET, but I think that's one of the things that we have to do, just to bring our colleagues along with us. And we do things, we have the strong diversity program, but the other thing is you get caught up in the US diversity issues and not the global issues. So we have to think about our whole employee base, because most of our employees are not in the United States. So we have to think about that. And I think that it's a culture that we've had, and we keep nurturing it, we build on it, and we try and respect that. And the team we have in China is very impressive, right? I think it may be the best team we have anywhere, but they do things that we don't think is possible, and then they do it faster and cheaper. So it's pretty impressive.
Ken, thank you for your time today. Bill McNamara, Bank of America, I'm a supporter of the World Affairs Council. I believe geographical knowledge of the world is essential, and support that with the students. It must be fun to work in your finance department with all the variables that change, such as the market price of lithium. What's your timeline for positive return on investment for your long-term planning? Do you have is there an average? Where do you look to see that ROI turn positive? And then in regard to your risk-taking personality, since you probably have talked to Mr. Musk, have you booked your seat on SpaceX flight?
Yeah, I have not booked a seat on my side. I have spoken to Mr. Musk. Look, I think our benchmarks financially are probably not out of the ordinary. So we say that we want to recover our cost of capital at trough pricing and twice our cost of capital at mid-cycle. So the question becomes, when you do an investment, what's trough pricing and what's mid-cycle? What do you put in that, and how confident are you in what that will be? And we've done a lot of work. We have a pretty sophisticated data science team that looks at supply and demand. We predict the lithium price. And we felt like we really understood it. And about 5 months ago, it went right through the floor that we had a lot of confidence in. So that's the question. I think the discussions that we have with our board, that's what we target, is returning our cost of capital at the bottom of the cycle and twice that in the middle. And it had held up for us for a long time, but we just this is a volatile market with geopolitical pressures. And it's hard to know how a market that is 70% China-based is gonna respond in a down cycle, or an up cycle for that matter. So those are some of the challenges that we face. I don't think I have a better answer.
Students.
Thank you, Mr. Masters, for your talk. I'm a student named Christian from Olympic High School, and coming from the experience of a student, I just want to know what kinds of programs and opportunities you give to students in STEM and any other field through your company, Albemarle.
Yeah, so there's probably better people to answer that question. I look at the HR people. But we do summer internships for university students, so we don't have a high school program around that. We do internships for summer internships, typically for university students. And we do it across multiple disciplines, but it's primarily around engineering or technical programs. But we also do it in business and finance programs. I'm looking to get a nod. That's true. Yeah, that's what I thought. And we've got some programs in the Charlotte area that focus. A lot of the foundation, we have a foundation we call the Albemarle Foundation, where we donate charitable organizations and in and around the areas in which we operate. Charlotte, our headquarters, being one of those. So we participate in a number of educational programs in the Charlotte area through the foundation. It's something we fund. We fund it every year, and every time we do a big deal, Scott's not here, but Scott explained to me, when we do a big deal, buy something, we sell something, we carve a little off for the foundation. That's how we funded it historically, and it's kind of part of the culture of the organization and how we contribute and be good corporate citizens in the areas where we operate, whether that's a mine or a corporate office.
Hi, I'm Safar. So when you got this position, I'm sure you had this idea of what a global company would look like traveling around and getting to actually meet people in their own nations. So what was it like to gain this position in 2020 and then have to deal with amending that idea now that you have to work behind the desk and you're not traveling?
Yeah, that was that is interesting, because I'm used to traveling the world, seeing the business, the people, customers, in their location. That's kind of how you really get to know the business. And in 2020, you either sat at home or I actually went into the office. I think I was most likely the only person in the office most of the time, but I just kind of felt better going into the office. And but it's amazing how quickly we adjusted. And I'm not sure, it wasn't that easy. I didn't travel, I didn't see the plants, but we managed, right? We even started up new plants that we had under construction remotely. So we weren't able to get people in. So the classic one, we started a plant in Australia. And you don't have the best engineering support in Australia. Typically, you would bring a vendor engineering support for all the equipment that you put in. They would bring engineers in to help you start up the equipment. None of that happened. Honeywell helped us develop this camera on the hard hats, where they would literally have a Teams meeting with someone in front of a piece of equipment in Australia talking to an engineer here in Charlotte or in Germany or something like that. So frankly, we struggled with that startup, but we started it up, and that was a unique experience. It was also first of a kind plant. So kind of a couple of things I recommend you don't ever do, but we didn't have a choice. So I was shocked by how well our organization, but I think it applies to every organization, responded to being sent home and working and making the economy and the world go around. And it did. I think it just speaks to the resilience of people in general and corporations.
Let me ask you a quick question. Probably is going to require a little more response.
Speak up.
In terms of, do you have an idea about the abundance of lithium on Earth and where it's located? I saw a 60-minute program a week or two ago about a former lake in South desert in California that might have an abundance of lithium. And then a recent story about lithium being on a lot of Native American reservations and the conflicts that might be created by that. How do you picture your positioning within that supply, and what access do you have to that? Or are there others that are tougher competitors in that regard?
Yeah, so the tough competitors around that are the Chinese. And because they will go places I can't go, or I don't have a good chance of being successful in some of those places. So the question is, there is a lot of lithium on the planet. The question really is the quality of it and the other impurities in it. And because that will determine the cost position and where it is. So if it's in the Arctic zone, it's going to be more expensive to get than it is if it's closer to the equator. So there is a lot of lithium. We really haven't been looking for lithium very long. We had shares in the two best resources, and today they are still the two best known resources: the Salar de Atacama in Chile and a mine in Australia called Greenbushes. Those are the best hard rock resource and the best brine resource in the world, and to this day that's true. And will we find something better? I don't know, but we haven't found it yet. Now we're looking, we're finding more lithium, but it doesn't tend to be at the higher quality, so it's the higher cost position. So I don't think there's the question about, do we have enough lithium? I think the question is, what's it going to cost us? Because we'll find it in places, but it's a matter of how much it costs to get it. And does that cost make the EV, or I think for light duty vehicles, that's going to be lithium ion batteries. We'll find enough lithium for that at a cost that makes sense. Because lithium is not a huge cost of a car. As much talk as there is about it, there's not that much. It's less than the margin the car companies make. But I don't think we know where all the lithium is yet, but I know we don't know where the high quality stuff is. We'll find some other higher quality, but why quality is important, that determines the cost position. And if it's too expensive, it just moves out on the cost curve. When you have cycles like you do now, those get shut down. So I think it's about quality and where they are, right? So there's a big resource in the Congo. I can't really compete in the Congo with the Chinese, so I let that one go. In the areas where we can compete, we go head to head with the Chinese about that, but I can't. They have more money than I do, and that's a little bit of the issue I have with trying to be the market leader and to grow at the same rate of the market. Is there are a lot of people out there with a lot of money. Some are supported by governments.
Thank you.
Eric Vitak, ex-board member of the World Affairs Council. Thank you for your time coming out and the support of the board. Quick question, follow up to his. So there was a big find out at the bottom. I don't know if that's the same one he was mentioning. But the mining company that owns it supposedly is owned by China. And I didn't know if you had any input on that when you were saying about national security, so we're going to need our own supply chain. Just to add to your complex.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the one that you're speaking of, and I don't believe a lithium mine, if it's owned by a Chinese entity, a Chinese company, will be developed in the U.S. I don't think the government's going to allow that. So they may have it. If they do, they could sell it. I'm not sure how, but they wouldn't get permitting. I just don't believe that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen in Canada or the U.S. or Australia. Those are probably the main three jurisdictions that are prospective for lithium that really is not. So there are places I can't compete with China. There's places they can't compete with me. U.S. is one of those. Canada's another. Australia's another. So so there's somewhere I don't compete with China. There's somewhere I can't compete with China. Then there's the rest of the world. That's where we find it out.
Okay, thank you very much for the wonderful speech and introduce about Albemarle. My name is Li Hong from PhD International. We were your customers during Pfizer launching the Paxlovid, and we are the key raw material supplier of that COVID drug. So being an international company and being a CEO and chairman of a global company, I want to ask you a question. If United and China relationship punches down to the situation that we don't want to see, how you as a CEO and chairman of a global company managing the risk of your business, meanwhile protecting your shareholders' interest, facing the political situation coming to the direction we don't want to see. What is in your planning ahead, anticipation to managing that risk?
Right, so, but that's the plan A, B, C, D, and E that I spoke about. And when I had that conversation, I had an A, B, and a C, and the C wasn't very well defined. So now we probably have, we have C's defined, G's defined, and E's the level, the third one was at that time. But we have, I mean, our basic, we've been operating under a strategy where we would make our products in China would go into the Chinese market. And China needs, they need us to bring lithium into the country. So we have a little bit of leverage on China. I don't know if you ever really have leverage on China, but we have something they want. And I think I'm in pretty good shape as long as that's the case. Once they get all the resource they need, then that's a little more difficult for me. And I need to be in a position where I'm building a Western supply chain. So by the time they get everything they need, I can pivot my resources to the West. So that's what the US wants, that satisfies China. But if there's a conflict, so that requires time for me to do that. In fact, the prices have gone down, make it more difficult because I've delayed how fast I can do that. And if there is a conflict in that interim period of time, we'll have to react. And if there are sanctions on China and I can't operate there, I'll have to sell the business at a discount. I won't have another choice. We hope we don't get into that scenario, but I have to have plans around that. Biggest part of the strategy was that we don't build more capacity in China than our natural share. Meaning, I can sell into the market locally and not disrupt the market. And because China will be happy with that, we would be happy with that. And if I have to sell it, I'm selling a good local business, then I would reach agreements for the resource to supply them, or not, but I would at least have leverage on that still. So, look, I don't know exactly what happens, and it's not gonna be pretty if it does happen, but we have plans. They're not great if that is the scenario, and to really execute well against it, I need time before it happens.
So I think that's it, and thank you very much, Kent. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to World Affairs Council for hosting us.